This is the Business Pulse. Welcome in America. I'm Chuck Barham, and we're brought to you by the Freedom Chamber online at freedomchamber.net, the pro-American business network. You own a small business, a mid-sized business, we have a healthcare solution for you. Come join us. Reach out to me. You can email me, chuck@freedomsquare.com. Joined by Rod Martin and Dean Owen, and we've got a lot to talk about. Where should we start? Should we start with the Supreme Court? Is the Supreme Court, Rod Martin, going to undermine anything and everything that President Trump has done with tariffs?
I think we've got a really good shot of a Trump victory, and I'm kind of surprised to be able to say that. But I was encouraged by how the justices responded to the Solicitor General, the questions they asked, the comments they made. So the important thing that gets overlooked here is that historically, every Supreme Court has treated this as part of the commerce power, not part of the taxing power. Now, if they see it as part of the taxing power, yeah, they're probably going to toss Trump out of court. But if they see it as part of the commerce power, that's quite another matter. Congress has clearly delegated tariff-making authority to presidents for 95 years. This starts with the Tariff Act of 1930. This is reaffirmed in a really powerful way in the Tariff Act of 1974. So that one has been the law almost my entire life. The other one has been for twice my life. And somehow all of a sudden it's unconstitutional just because Donald Trump wants to use it. That doesn't add up. All these other presidents did it, and nobody said a word at the Supreme Court. So my guess is they look at that as a delegation of authority that Congress could rescind. The other interesting point, I believe it was Kavanaugh, it might have been Gorsuch who made it, was that we actually have it was Amy Coney Barrett said there's no economic distinction between a license and a tariff. And so he clearly has the power to impose a license. And of course, as came out in the questioning, he also has the power to completely end trade with any country he chooses. So, there was some talk about the absurdity of, okay, he can completely embargo China, but he can't put a 1% tariff on them. Does that really make sense? And I think what you ultimately get to here is that this is part and parcel of the foreign policy making authority that overlaps between the legislative and the executive branches, very much like war making. We have a War Powers Act where the president can do certain things for 90 days without congressional approval, blah, blah, blah. Now, they haven't put that kind of restriction on tariffs. They could, they don't have to, but the point is they delegated the power, not because they necessarily had to. He's the commander-in-chief. He has inherent war-making power. I think he has inherent tariff-making power for the exact same reasons, and Congress still controls the rules of the game. I think that's where they land. I think we've got a decent chance at a 5-4 or even a 6-3.
Well, in theory, on paper only, tariffs could be a tax on the American people. Here's what's happening in the real world, and I'm importing from other countries the things that we cannot buy here. And the companies in China have offered to eat the tariffs at some point. When they got really high, they were willing to split the tariffs. The company in Italy has agreed to eat the tariffs at times. When it got higher, they would split the tariffs. So are we paying some of the tariffs? Yes. Are we collecting a lot of revenue from it? Yes. Are companies in other countries who know they've had a sweetheart deal and they're going to have to eat the tariffs, are they eating it some? Yes. There is no simple one-size solution. This is not a cookie-cutter issue. It's not a soundbite. This is something that gets in depth. And in some industries, yes, the U.S. taxpayer may have to eat the whole thing. In other industries, the U.S. taxpayer will not eat any of it. So, and then there's every angle in between, and it's just not a cookie cutter thing. So you can't just say tariffs equal a tax on the American people and Congress has the power to tax and the president does not. It's much deeper than that. That argument is made by simpletons who do not understand how the real world works.
And some of those simpletons are incredibly well-educated people who nevertheless just don't operate in the real world. Okay, so let's think about tariffs the way we would think about sales tax, which is kind of a big deal here in Florida at the moment because we have no income tax and we're trying to abolish our property tax, thank God, because property tax is just evil. You're asking widows to pay rent to the government for the house they paid off 30 years ago. It's just obscene. Okay, so how are you going to make up the revenue shortfall? You're going to have to increase sales tax. There's no real way around that. Does that bother me? No, it might if I lived in some other state, but it certainly doesn't bother me in Florida because we had 143 million tourists last year. That's almost twice as many tourists as went to New York and California put together. They're paying our sales tax. So that makes sense. Same thing with tariffs. You know, we have some businesses that are going to pay the tariff and they will probably eat the tariff to stay competitive. But the truth is they're probably going to shift their consumption to domestic production. And as a consumer, I can buy a Mercedes that was built in Germany, or I could buy one that was built in South Carolina and there's no tariff at all. So this is a trade power. This is a foreign policy power. This is a commerce power. It is not a taxing power in the same way as the president just declaring a 5% income tax increase. That's just not what's happening here.
Well, then is it wise to take the tariff money that we've got and reinvest it with the American people, or to take down the debt, the $2,000 rebate check that President Trump tossed out there to the ether, the internet the other day? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Both.
I
And
agree.
I think the president capped the rebates at 25% of tariff revenue or something like that. Of course, the people should get some of their money back, but we also need to pay down the debt, starting with reducing the deficit so we're not running up more. But ultimately, as economic growth really kicks in, pay down the debt.
Well, and you got to remember this president doesn't play checkers. He plays 3D chess. So big issue with trying to get the government open was healthcare subsidies. Well, let's throw the money we were going to send in subsidies to insurance companies. Let's put that to American people, use tariff revenue to do it, and blow up the idea that we need to buy $1 billion worth of insurance subsidies for illegal aliens and SNAP benefits for illegal aliens and all of those kinds of things, and use some tariff revenue to cover that. And I think that idea is what opened the government and finally got them to kind of have a puckered up moment and go, oh crap, if we don't change this subject real quick, we are going to be the bad guys. And that's when Chuck Schumer finally went to some senators that were in very, very safe districts and said, okay, I can't put my hands on it, but you got to vote for this. We got to open up the government in a way it looks like I was trying to block you. And I think that's what happened. And it's all this stuff ties together. It's all, this president learned a long time before I did, stop multiplying or stop adding and start multiplying.
But do you think there's some things stuffed inside the bill to get the government open that are going to come back to bite the Republicans and the American people, including the renegotiations of the ACA and the tax credits that were thrown in there? Are there going to be these things that we didn't see in there because we had to pass the bill to see what's in the bill that are going to come back when they renegotiate to keep the government open into 2026? Rod, your thoughts?
I think that that's an opportunity. I mean, we're going to have an opportunity which Donald Trump availed himself of not once, but 3 times in his first term, trying to repeal and replace Obamacare. This is a chance to have a discussion about just how terrible Obamacare really is for regular people. I know lots of people whose premiums went up between 5 and 10-fold immediately after the passage of the supposedly Affordable Care Act. That's got to be undone, and it wouldn't be hard to undo it. So I think we get an opportunity there. As far as the rest, I mean, the big features are the promise of a vote on that. And by the way, that promise doesn't extend to the House. So, Speaker Johnson may not actually have a vote on it, but we will get a debate in the Senate. Second, we're going to have a year of a clean CR as regards to military construction, veterans affairs, There was one other thing. Food stamps. Duh. And so that's off the table now. They can't use our impoverished Americans as hostages for their scams, and we can get down to a real debate about the actual spending and appropriations bills that we need to get passed.
And I think it will be golden, because when we do have that debate, it's going to be, do we pass this bill to fund Obamacare and send all this money to insurance, or do we possibly undo insurance, let people buy catastrophic care insurance who need that, and we're going to give you some money to go buy it with. And the American people are going to go, wait a minute, I can get some free money, or you can give that money to the insurance companies, or you can give it to me. Well, the American people, which side are they going to fall on? And looking down the debate, when that debate starts, Donald Trump is setting them up for another 80-20 debate, where 80% of the country is going to say, send us the money to us and we'll make better decisions and give us options to buy catastrophic care, to use health sharing ministries, to use some of the things the chamber's offering, and have options again, and have the money to do those, or just ship the money to the insurance companies and we'll get more of the problems we've already got. How's the public going to look at that issue during the year we have the midterm?
Well, that's what's going to happen next year. We'll find out. And this is one of these shows I want to place an earmark on, because your track record, your batting averages, Rod and Dean, are pretty significantly awesome when it comes to things we talk about than things that really come true in real life. So I want to earmark episode 21 here of the Business Pulse and give kudos in the next 90 days when everything starts to play out the way you guys are talking about. Dean, where can people find you online as we wrap up this segment of the Business Pulse?
OwenCPA.com. Jump online, connect with my team, get on the newsletter. Let's start our conversations again, saying it loud and proud. We are getting towards the end of the year. If you start measuring how many work days are left this year, there's only about 5 work weeks left. You got to throw time in there for Thanksgiving, time in there for Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. There's not a lot of time. If you don't have a plan in place now, you better get hopping, because you call me in a week from now, my team's going to tell you we don't have time. There's already a lot of options that have closed because people wait until the last minute. And I get it. When it's June, July, you think I got something else to do today. I'll solve tomorrow's problem tomorrow. But these things take time to get things structured. Right now, we're mostly doing planning for 2026 with new tax laws and all the things that are going on. There's still some things we can do for 25, but there's probably a week, maybe a week and a half left in time to get those done.
And as we record this, it's Veterans Day today. Thank you for your service, Dean. We appreciate that. And Mr. Martin, where can people find you online?
rodmartin.org, daily geopolitical analysis. Fox Business calls absolutely phenomenal. We've got tens of thousands of subscribers. You should be one of them. And we also have 275,000 followers on X. Clearly something's going on. So come join us at rodmartin.org.
Excellent. On the other side of this break, in segment number 2 of the Business Pulse, we'll be joined by the president of Proactive Solutions HR. Jen Mikulski joins us next, one of the founders of the Freedom Chamber. And this is the Business Pulse.
Hey, the Freedom Chamber is amazing. I'm so glad that we get to be here on the Freedom Chamber's Business Pulse. This is an organization you should support. It's an organization of which you should be a member. The Freedom Chamber is getting important things done in this country. And honestly, we need spaces for people who believe the sorts of things that if you're watching this, you probably do. We have gone through this extended period of not just canceling individuals, but just boycotting businesses and doing terrible things, debanking. Nigel Farage, who is likely to be the next prime minister of the United Kingdom, was actually debanked by all the major banks in the United Kingdom. And of course that happens here, and we get de-insured and all these terrible things. The Freedom Chamber is fighting for you. The Freedom Chamber is here to make sure that you're protected, that your values matter, they count, and they're in the public square. So I encourage everybody to join the Freedom Chamber.
America, welcome back into the Business Pulse. I'm Chuck Barham, your host. We're brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net. And one of the original founders of the Freedom Chamber is joining us right now, Jen Mikulski of Proactive Solutions HR. Welcome to the Business Pulse.
Thank you.
And I see it's Hat Day. on this segment of the Business Pulse. Beautiful toques you guys have got on, Dean, Rod, and Jen. One of the things, and I feel kind of naked, to be quite honest with you, now that I'm not wearing one. But one of the things we like to always discuss is what business owners and business people are seeing, feeling, what their forecast is for 2026 with everything that's going on in the administration that is Trump and the big beautiful bill and everything that's gone down with during the government shutdown, which hopefully by the time you're watching this will have been over in something in the past. But Jen, just give us what you do over at Proactive Solutions HR and what you're feeling and what you're seeing.
Thanks, Chuck. Nice to be with all of you. So Practice Solutions HR focuses on partnering with small, mid-sized companies in their recruiting needs to make sure that we're helping them achieve their goals and hiring the right talent. And then also I have 20 plus years of HR experience. And so I work with companies just to help them with that higher level HR touch where they may not have their own HR department. So they call on me to help them with more of that strategy and helping them through some difficult situations.
What do you see in 2026? Because I'm sure your clients are forecasting we need this, we need that, or we need to pull back from this and that. Give us your insight.
I've been really blessed. When I started partnering with the small and mid-sized companies, it feels like for years now I have just been drinking through a fire hose. So business continues to be really strong for us. The need for great talent has not ceased in one capacity for us. We do a lot of placements with professional services organizations, and just having really great, competent, talented, hardworking individuals to come on board and add to their team has been great. Seeing a little bit of slowdown in some of my clients who have heavier, government sector projects, but really what it's ultimately having them do is just shift some of their market verticals, not really taking away a need for the talent, but just doing a few shifts internally. But for us, outlook is great.
I'm just interested to see what you think the market is looking like over the next 6 to 12 months.
So as far as I can tell, we have no shortage of opportunities coming our way of people needing help and just finding the great talent. We are constantly just trying to identify people who are ready, back in the office. We're not doing any more work from home. Hybrid tends to be going away. My clients are leading with flexibility, right? Like we understand that you have families at home, that we've crafted this work-life balance or integration that you will. But for me, optimism is huge. I see a great outlook. I literally had, 3 new job requests come in just this week. And I am also looking to hire for my team just so that we can continue to partner with our clients.
Well, Jen, you raise a really interesting point there with regard to the work from home movement, as it were, which I've always thought was a terrible idea. Remote work has its place for some people some of the time, not saying you should never use it, but in general, it's really a problem. You lose esprit de corps in the office. You lose the commonality of people purposefully working together to find solutions. But the biggest single thing that I think everybody lost track of is that the employee loses mentorship opportunities. And that's one of the main reasons you want to be in a particular job. I think it's just been entirely self-defeating. And most of the time, work-life balance just means I'm going to do everything but work.
So I don't disagree with that. I think the other piece that you could couple along with that problem is burnout. So for those who are effective, right, at working from home, they never shut it off.
Right.
They're working 12, 16 hours a day, and the burnout factor is huge. So even some of your best staff that's working remotely is ultimately burning out faster. So rapport, camaraderie, you know what? The saying goes, many hands make light work.
Yes.
That continues. And so when people come together in a social office environment and tackle a project together, that is where I think a lot of my clients see success. And again, we can be flexible. No one wants to babysit and no one wants to be babysat, right? So how do we make that work? We're all adults. We've got common goals. Let's make it happen. So it's refreshing to see that coming back. And I actually think that the generation of college graduates from 2020 to today, all they know is remote or hybrid. I'm hopeful that they will see the benefits shortly, that getting back to the office will be a much faster trajectory for their work, professional career.
Jen, I got a question. I know that we're seeing reports that some of the biggest players, and believe me, I know the difference between small, medium, and large employers, but some of the larger employers are starting with layoffs, largely in the tech sector, and some of that's being attributed to their aggressive hiring during COVID and the pandemic and all of that. How much of that are you seeing rolling down into the middle and the middle and smaller business?
Not as heavily, because the fight for talent has never ceased for the small to mid-sized companies. I mean, it was a dog-eat-dog world for a few years during the pandemic years. So just because the large corporations really gobbled up a lot of that talent. So I can't speak to that myself.
It's a great question. And I agree with what you said, Rod and Dean and Jen, about, you get that pool of ideas when you're all in the office, and somebody may not be able to share that as they're sitting in their pajamas in their living room on their TV tray with their computer as they're doing their reports. When they've got an idea, they have nobody to share it with. That's the human interaction portion of the job world that I believe we've all missed out on. And it's great to see that you're seeing that, Jen, in your world, where people are moving away from working from home. And you're right, Rod, there are certain instances where being remotely and working remotely makes a lot of sense. But common sense is also telling us that we need to get back to work in the offices. And Dean, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, bud.
No, I was just, that's what I'm seeing from my aspect, from the CPA world. Obviously, my hands are not as deep in the HR world as Jen's is, but it's still, I've got a window into that world. And so my window's fairly narrow. I just was wondering what Jen was seeing, if she would echo my thoughts and what I'm seeing. Sounds like we're seeing the same thing.
I have one more question for Jen before we go, because we're running up against a hard break. In the HR world, in today's political climate, have you seen an uptick in businesses really trying to put a security blanket around how people handle politics within an office situation?
I have not seen that at all.
Interesting. Okay.
No.
I would have thought that'd be something that HR would put a mandate in their handbook with.
No, not at all. And I think that ends up treading on water of freedom of speech a little bit too closely in my book. But I am operating as a consultant externally, so I'm not living in the day-to-day world inside a lot of companies. So I may not just have that viewpoint. But no, I would say it starts with leadership, and you lead by managing the work that you need to do, managing your employees, and focus on your clients. And when you keep it that simple, ideally you can kind of take all of the external conversations and keep it external. Great answer.
Great answer. Jen, where can people find you at?
PracticeSolutionsHR.com or on LinkedIn at Jennifer Mikulski. Happy to check with anybody, and we partner with companies nationwide. So
fantastic. Thanks for being the original founder of the Freedom Chamber, and we appreciate all that you do. And Dean Owen, where can people find you online?
OwenCPA.com. We're coming up here on the end of the year. If you haven't done your tax planning by now, you're coming up on a real hard window. If you think about how many weeks of work we have left in the year, it's really only about 5 when you count in Christmas and Thanksgiving and the time that's going to be lost with that, and then early Christmas with shopping and parties and all that kind of stuff. So we got a small window to jump on tax planning. If you call me a month from today and want to start, it ain't going to happen. So get OwenCPA.com, get online, connect with my team, and let's do what we need to do to disinherit the government and not your kids.
Rod Martin, where can we find you?
rodmartin.org. We do daily geopolitical analysis. Fox Business calls absolutely phenomenal. So you definitely want to be part of that. Tens of thousands of subscribers, and also 275,000 additional followers on X. So clearly a lot's going on. So come to rodmartin.org.
Thank you all very much for all that you... Yes, sir. Go ahead, Dean.
One other thing, just to publicly say thanks to Rod. His analysis of Veterans Day this morning was really deep, really good, very powerful, positive, uplifting. I forwarded that to clients and got a number of responses of thanks for me forwarding that. So Rod, publicly, thank you for putting that out. Your analysis is always amazing, but this one was, this one spoke to the heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dean, one more time, thank you for your service, sir. Happy Veterans Day. And thank you all for being here. This has been the Business Pulse.
My name is Dean Owen. I'm a CPA. I have a master's degree in taxation and a personal financial specialist. Tax laws are always changing. That's why you need a tax strategist, not just a tax preparer. You need someone to help you pay the least amount of tax legally. Because if your business and retirement tax planning is not tax smart, it's probably tax dumb. Let's fix that today. Call me. Let's disinherit the government and not your kids. That's what my team and I do. This is who we are. I'm a combat veteran, unapologetically American, unapologetically pro-God, pro-life, and pro-Second Amendment. If those are the values you seek in a tax and money advisor, call us. Again, let's disinherit the government and not your kids. We're not afraid to share our values, and we share them with you.